Hello everyone, Constitutionalist Libertarian here, and today we're going to be taking a look at an article from McClatchy, DC Bureau. It's written by Patricia Keim, I'm assuming that is. If I'm butchering the name, I apologize. Who's special to McClatchy, published on July 6th. Lawmakers halt bill to let VA doctors prescribe pot for pain. Well, first off, you'd probably be better off titling it Cannabis for pain, because pot was a term that was kind of created to be a negative, and it was kind of owned. That's why, you've got all these people calling it cannabis today in the legalization movement and in legal states. I mean, personally, I still call it pot, but I'm just talking on the note of if you're trying to push it in a medical sense. Pot is more of a recreational term type thing. Those who use it medically to give it the legitimacy type thing that they need to give it in order to deal with idiots like these lawmakers call it cannabis. Republican lawmakers have blocked a vote on a bill that would have allowed Veterans Affairs doctors to recommend medical marijuana as a pain treatment in states where the drug is legal. Actually, no. It would allow for them to actually prescribe it as a drug for treatment. Not recommend it. Prescribe it. There's a big fucking difference, but I don't understand why you can't point that out. Are you trying to appease to the quote-unquote conservatives that think that these neocons and, rhinos that manage to keep their fucking, job, we'll put it that way, because it is a job, that manage to keep their jobs hanging on or riding in on Trump's coattails are fucking against this shit? I mean, even the Democrats that might be against it, okay? Do you think that there's, that you're not catering to them by wording it like that? The House Rules Committee stopped a proposed Veterans Equal Access Amendment from moving to debate on the House floor by keeping the measure out of the House's proposed VA funding bill for next year. Yeah, because if it was put in with the VA funding bill, these fuckwits that are against it would have to vote for it because they don't want to go, well, I'm against veterans, or have people accuse them of that. The sponsor of the House provision, Rep. Earl Blumenauer, Democrat Oregon, said he was bitterly disappointed that the amendment was sidelined. Rightfully so, because we have an epidemic in this country with opiates and heroin. And one of the things that the VA is shoving down the throats of our servicemen is opiates. They're giving them drugs that have other side effects for like PTSD and shit. And cannabis could treat a lot of their issues like post-traumatic stress, their pain management, and end up costing Big Pharma a hell of a lot of money, because the VA handing this shit out is paying for it basically. Or if a person pays for it, it's the government eating most of the cost, if not nearly all of it. I mean, because they'll give the shit out free to veterans, depending on their disability. So, level of disability. And they're happy to prescribe that shit, but oh no, a plant that could keep them from fucking getting addicted to something, that like could literally lead to them ODing and shit, and dying. Oh yeah, we can't have that. We can't have them possibly getting their hands on that. This is a subject that has gained a great deal more attention and momentum, Blumenauer told McClatchy. Most people recognize that the VA has really failed our veterans when it has come to pain management, opioids, and opioid dependency. Exactly. This would help change that. But I think they would rather have doped up on, opiates and heroin former U.S. military members than they would actually having them be stoned and functional. It's like they want to intentionally sideline these people. It's like a deep state globalist thing that we got to keep these people, basically sedated on opiates and docile. It just seems that way. He noted that his amendment had the bipartisan support of 9 Democrats and 9 Republicans, but somehow the 13-member House Rules Committee decided it wasn't going to allow this amendment. Well, I think, people should be calling all the members of the House Rules Committee and say, what the fuck do you think you're doing? The Rules Committee's move makes it more difficult for the provision to be approved this year, but not impossible. The Senate's fiscal 2018 Military Construction and Veterans Fair Appropriation Bill contains a similar provision, and that means the amendment could still make it into the final bill when the 2 chambers meet later this year to negotiate a compromise. The measure would have allowed VA doctors to consider medical marijuana for interested patients and complete the forms necessary to participate in state medical marijuana programs. With medical marijuana illegal under federal law, VA physicians and other providers are prohibited from recommending medical marijuana or filling out the needed paperwork. Which is really sad that they are unable to do this. I mean, they should be able to offer and prescribe any treatment that they see will help our veterans. With the sacrifices they made, there should be no issue with having their doctors be able to prescribe them some cannabis to help them with things like post-traumatic stress disorder or pain management because they got a limb blown off or because they got a stomach full of shrapnel and their stomach still hasn't recovered and they're having problems eating. I mean, that would not only help them with their pain, but it would also help them with their appetite. And to deny them this access, this type of medicine is something that these idiots in Congress should not be doing. Marijuana, uncertain medicine. Marijuana's effects can vary from person to person, and scientists are not quite sure what to make of the common distinction users and growers make between cannabis sativa and cannabis indica. Well, cannabis sativa and cannabis indica are not technically purebred strains anymore, at least what's generally available. And then there's a third strain that I can't remember the name of that they've mixed in for auto-flowering varieties. So that's why there's no common distinction. Okay? That's why you have different strains that individuals created being named by them because they're unique. Veterans can still seek treatment outside the VA, but must pay out of pocket for care in cannabis. Blumenauer introduced the same amendment in 2016, and the legislation enjoyed widespread bipartisan support, passing the House by 233 to 189 vote. Its companion measure in the Senate also passed overwhelmingly 89 to 8, but the amendments disappeared from the final version of the larger appropriations bill, stripped by the committee that met to negotiate the differences between the two. Well, of course it did, because it was just those minority people, those in the minority, those people, that decided we're going to yank the shit. It was good PR to be for it officially, but unofficially, who says they have to be? That's another factor. I mean, it's disgusting that this type of shit's being played with something that could genuinely help our soldiers who have come back and have issues as a result of sacrificing, their sanity and their health and their bodies to defend the ideals of this country. The congressman, a founder of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, is hoping for a different outcome this year. This isn't going away. I think there's an excellent chance it happens this Congress, as veterans become more and more outspoken about why they shouldn't be treated like second-class citizens. And he's right. The veterans could definitely play a big factor in straightening this out. Veterans and advocacy groups have worked for years to promote medical marijuana as a treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic pain, and other combat-related conditions. The American Legion, the largest veterans organization with 2.4 million members, last August called for marijuana to be rescheduled as something other than a Schedule I drug to promote research on its use in medical treatment. For the American Legion to come out and say this, when the American Legion has traditionally been, more older men, older members, we'll say. The same with VFW. I mean, those types of organizations tended to attract the older guys, from Korea and Vietnam. The guys from Grenada on, not really so much. And when you have older gentlemen, well, Vietnam I can kind of understand. I mean, they're from the 60s, but when they're saying that this should happen, and they're speaking for their fellow brothers in arms, the government should be taking notice. VA Secretary David Shulkin said in May that any decision on rescheduling marijuana would have to come from Congress, but he expressed interest in it as a potential treatment if research supports it. If there's compelling evidence that this is helpful, I hope the people will take a look at that, Shulkin said. Well, at least he's kind of open to it, but that's just kind of one of those pawned off answers. But yeah. Senator Steve Daines, Republican Montana, introduced the amendment in the Senate's version of the VA spending bill. Like Blumauer's Daines amendment would provide veterans the opportunity to access medical marijuana through the VA in states where it has been legalized. The Senate Appropriations Committee voted July 13 to include Daines' provision in the bill by a vote of 24-7, which is a good thing. I mean, that's actually a larger number than I would have expected. I figured it would be more squeaky on passing, where you have these neocons and rhinos that are, there because they wrote in on Trump and they're anti, cannabis, like on the note of Sessions is. I was expecting more of that type of stuff. Montana's veterans have suffered under the status quo for too long, Daines said in a prepared statement after the vote. We are beginning to make real progress for Montana's veterans, and I look forward to continuing to make progress for them. Well, good for him. At least he understands that these are individuals that need access to something other than the opiates and everything else. Despite what they see as a setback with the House Rules Committee decision on Tuesday, veterans advocates remain hopeful that the measure eventually will pass. It's confusing. So many people think this already passed last year, said Michael Kraritz, a former Air Force Staff Sergeant and Executive Director of Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access. We were disgusted by the process last year, but I think the Veterans Equal Access Amendment will pass, and it's almost the end of the road for us in terms of quantifiable success. Yeah, they're kind of getting to the end of this. I mean, they can only take it so far. Veterans cannot lose their VA disability compensation or health benefits if they are found to use marijuana. Their doctors can decide, however, to reduce their access to pain medications, including opioids, if the veterans use medical marijuana and the physician believes they may be at risk for drug interaction or dependency. The decision is made on a case-by-case basis, which it should be. And there should be more people that are not taking opioids. Period. We have an epidemic in this country. There needs to be alternatives that don't have the habit-forming addictions. like opioids. Medical marijuana is legal in 29 states plus the District of Columbia, although states differ on medical conditions for which it can be prescribed. I mean, if you look at Massachusetts, was a medical state, you know, being from New England. Now it's a recreational state. New Hampshire is a limited medical state at the moment, and is very restrictive in what diseases it can be used as a treatment for. You know, Maine, like Massachusetts, went medical, and I'm sure they're going to be recreational, or if they already aren't. I don't really pay attention to Maine unless I really have to. But yeah, so I mean, and it varies from other states. I mean, look at Las Vegas. They skipped right over the medical and went straight to the recreational legalization. And they had to declare a state of emergency there because they were running out of pot. Because the tourists wanted so much of it. Because they were like, ooh, I could go, I can get stoned, I can gamble. Yeah. So, I mean, that should say a lot on the note of the recreational side alone, too. There's a demand for it. So not only is there a demand for, you know, medical use by people, there are people who want to use it for recreational use as well. And they should be using both to try to fight this. From both, you know, a multi-pronged attack. These are military guys. They should be looking at that and say, hey, we should be working at this from multiple angles. United States of marijuana, the country's evolving laws on cannabis. Results from the 2016 election brought about new rules on the use of recreational and medical marijuana in several states, with more than half now allowing for the latter. Federal government leaders, including President-elect Trump, have voiced their opinions on the changing state of mind around marijuana, and this is the beginning of the marijuana prohibition. I love how they put President-elect Trump. And when was this published again? July 26th. Either you're still in denial, Patricia, or you don't fucking proofread your shit and you got no fucking clue. You got like Pelosi syndrome going on or something here. But yeah, when he was president-elect, he was let the states regulate it. Even after he got elected, he was basically like that. So, you know, on the note of things on Sessions being fired for, his ramping up to go after marijuana, going after cannabis, that's a good one, besides his recusing himself when he shouldn't have recused himself. I mean, so to me, yeah. When you have Sessions doing that, and there's this gearing up going on, you know the good old boys, the rhinos, the neocons, they got a plan in mind, and Sessions is kind of working with that. I mean, he just reenacted the whole asset forfeiture bullshit. I shouldn't say civil because I think it's the criminal. It could be the civil. Oh, it probably is the civil. But regardless, criminal or civil, he just reinstated the whole asset forfeiture thing. So, I mean, we need to look at that, okay? Trump needs to get him out of office and go back to the fact of let the states do it, let the, you know, type thing, and go from there. Just don't touch it, leave it be. Because if Congress passes this, Sessions will ignore it. He'll just pick and choose federal law. If he's willing to ignore the man who, you know, appointed him to the position he's in, you know, if he's willing to ignore what that man who appointed him, the president, has said about, we're not going to fuck with it. We're going to let the states decide. That speaks volumes on the note of where he'll stand on the when it comes to this, when it comes to them making it so that veterans have access. And I think that's a good point to, you know, good place to end. So this is the Constitutionalist Libertarian. If you liked the video, definitely hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe. And, you know, ring the bell if you want to be alerted to it. Thank you all. Have a good one.